Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at our webinar, How to Enter the Banking Sector as a Skilled Newcomer. Before we begin, I just want to say this is a free webinar provided by Career Loans, and we're all very happy to have you joining us today. A quick land acknowledgement before we begin. Achēv acknowledges that the land on which we live, work, and gather, even virtually, is part of the treaty lands and territories of the Mississauga of the Credits. The land on which the region of Peel and the regional municipality of Halton operates is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and Métis peoples. We're grateful to have the opportunity to work on the land, and by doing so, give our respects to the first inhabitants. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and communicating and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. As for today's webinar, do feel free to chat with us. I will be in the chat section. And if you have any question anytime during today's webinar, do type them in the Q&A session, Q&A feature, because we have a Q&A session afterwards, after the main presentation. We also have a short survey, which I will send out via email, so you don't need to copy that URL, but we would very much appreciate if you take the 1 minute. It takes 1 minute to tell us what you think about today's webinar. Who is here today? My name is Gavin L. Young. I am the content developer for the Career Loans program. Our guest speaker is Sandeep Chaudhary, Head of International and Customer Growth with HSBC. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Veena Shafay, Information and Financial Counselor with the Career Loans program. Before we get to the introductions, I do want to show a quick video about the Career Loans program, and more specifically, how we help newcomers in Alberta and Saskatchewan return to their desired careers.
I'm Rianne Mendoza, and I came to Canada from the Philippines last year in November.
Hello, my name is Ifoma. I came to Canada June 2019.
My desired occupation in Canada is a privacy lawyer.
And my desire is to work as a medical doctor in Canada. The major challenge that I was facing was financial.
I don't have the sufficient resources in order for me to enroll.
I used part of the money that I got from Career Loans to register for the first part of the exam.
I was able to enroll in the training programs to becoming a privacy professional,
To buy a mini laptop that I would use to prepare for the exams.
to purchase all the required texts.
Ever since I applied to Career Loans, I can say that my career outlook is definitely brighter.
I will also be getting my certification for Asia.
Because I've gotten the assistance that I needed. I've been able to register for the exams.
I am now more prepared to become a privacy professional in Canada.
Things are looking brighter. Yeah, I just feel like, I'm getting closer to my goal.
And thanks to Career Loans, I am now more confident and in my way towards my journey of becoming a privacy professional here in Canada.
Now we'll hear more about the Career Loans program afterwards, but first I just want to quickly run over today's agenda. First, we'll be introducing our speaker, Sandeep, and then that will be the main part of the presentation. Number 2, how to enter the banking sector as a skilled newcomer. Venus and Sandeep will be having a conversation about that. Afterwards, the third point, Venus will be talking about the Career Loans program and how we help skilled newcomers. We saw a short video, but we'll be going into a little bit more detail about how we can help you. And of course, number 4, the Q&A session. This is when we answer all your questions. But again, anytime during today's presentation, if you do have a question, do type it in the Q&A box and we will get to them at the end of today's webinar. And last but not least, we will be concluding with after the Q&A session. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce our guest, Sandeep. Sandeep is the head of international banking and customer growth for HSBC Bank Canada. He leads a team that's responsible for development and implementation of customer acquisition and engagement strategies across all customer and product segments for wealth and personal banking. Apart from his banking stints, he volunteers as a speaker mentor with organizations like Triac, Access Employment, Malton Community Center, Destination CEO, 10,000 Coffee, and mentorship, and the mentorship group, along with other one-on-one coaching. This is his way of giving back to the community by providing support for newcomers to Canada. I'd like to invite Sandeep and Venus to both turn on your cameras now. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm sure we have a wonderful presentation and our audience members are going to be learning a lot from today. How are you today, Sandeep?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And, it's always feels great to be able to provide some inputs to the newcomers that are coming in. I was myself one of them some years back. So yeah, feels good.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today. We also have Venus, who is the Information and Financial Counselor of the Career Loans Program. How are you doing today, Venus?
I'm doing well. I want to say hi to everyone who is joining us today, who actually joined us today, and very pleased to have Sandeep here. So wanted to start by actually asking you, can you tell us about your experience arriving in Canada and relaunching your career in banking?
Yeah, for sure, Venus. And when I decided to move into Canada, couple of things I did. One was I was already pretty well settled in banking sector where I came from, but I knew that in Canada, and nowadays things are still far better. But when I came in about 13-14 years back, it was absolutely unheard of that somebody starts at a different level than a teller or something to start off in a banking career. So, and I was not in that mindset to do it. So I did some research. I kind of realized where my sweet spot would be. I understood what my strengths were and how I can play with those strengths. And then I had a very clear-cut understanding that which are the organizations that I'm going to target and why. And then because I did that, that whole exercise, I also did a little bit of networking to understand who would be the right people in those organizations that I'm going to target for. And eventually I came only for 3 weeks to open my landing, and I actually got a job offer in that 3 weeks. In fact, before leaving back home, I actually got the job offer. And then over the next 3-4 months, I kind of worked on it and then finally came and joined a bank here as a manager sales for them 13 years back. So, and now I am already, I worked with one multinational bank for about 7 years and with the current organization for last 6 years. And that's how my journey has been. I think if I have to highlight 3 things that I did right, I think I really did self-retrospection a lot to understand what my strengths, what my weaknesses are. What do I really bring on the table, different than others, though being new? Second, which is the right sweet spot for me based on those strengths? And then third, how do I get relationships and maintain relationships, which would also be in turn work as networking to be able to provide me with the right break.
Wonderful, wonderful, very inspiring. So what suggestion do you have for newcomers with banking experience so that they can return to a career in banking?
Very, very good question, very relevant question. Couple of things, as I said, that in people do a lot of time, I see this mistake where people just consider moving into a country like changing a job. Changing a job and changing a country is not the same. So you cannot have the same intensity and the same passion which you used to have in your back home while changing jobs in this scenario. It is multifold difficult. It is multifold complex. And then you are trying to position yourself with all the experience that you had in a different world to somebody who has no idea about that world. So I always give this example that if you were in banking back home, and if you're a manager and you would recruit, just think of a scenario that you are in, say, let me give an example. I don't know which countries people are there in today's call, but let's take a country, Philippines. Let's take that example. So in Philippines, you are working in a bank and you were recruiting somebody and you required somebody with experience in that field, and your field is not very technical. It's a 50% technical, 50% general skill, and 3 people apply for that job. One who is in Philippines, who has done that same job in a different bank. One who is also in Philippines, but in a different industry and has some linkage. And the third person applied from India. What is the chance you being the manager recruiting the Indian guy? And let's be truthful to ourselves. Most of us, 99% of us would select the first one. And maybe 1% will try with the second. Nobody is going to even flip the resume to look at the third. That third is us when we are new in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So the most important thing is to understand that. And remember that when you are looking for a job, yes, it is the most important thing for you. But it is not you who is going to get you the job. It is the person who is interviewing you who is going to give you the job. So you need to explain and understand yourself very, very, very well to then be able to position yourself to understand what is the need of the job and how do you become the best candidate for that hiring manager to solve the problem that he or she has. So self-retrospection, understanding yourself, and then preparing yourself with the gaps that you see, and then with help of mentors, networks, understand that and really making that sharp is the most important step. But the solution that you're trying to bring in, you are the solution to a problem that the hiring manager has. So you cannot be just a person who is trying to look for a job. You are the solution that that hiring manager is looking for. And once you get that marriage happen, chances of you getting that job is high. And that's the reason why you need to keep in mind that you are in a new country. It might look like same, a branch in Philippines, a branch in India, a branch in Africa, a branch in Nigeria, and a branch in Canada almost looks the same. But it is not the same. The people are not the same. The customer is not the same. The average value of a customer is very different. So it is not the same. So you have to respect that. Based on that, understand and put that story that I just told you, that if you are the manager, would you recruit? And if you recruit, if you sitting in Philippines, you recruit that Indian guy or that lady, why will you do that? That's the answer that you need to ask yourself and give that answer to yourself. So preparation would be a very key element. Self-retrospection would be a very clear element. And then preparing yourself to position yourself is going to be the next step.
Great. What are 3 Canadian courses or certifications that you recommend for newcomers with banking experience?
Well, that's a very broad question. So banking can be divided into quite a few number of steps in Canada. And Other than typical commercial banking, corporate banking, global banking, and retail banking, within retail banking, there are also different phases. So it depends on what kind of program, what kind of background do you have, what do you really like to do, where you want to be. Based on that, you need to understand that which part of banking you want to be a part of. And then based on that, you need to see which program gives you that certification to tell you or tell the hiring manager that yes, you do have that academic background or the academic knowledge that is required to perform that duty. So it's not a top-down thing. It's not that, oh, I want to become an advisor, so I'll do this course. The question is, why do you want to become an advisor? Do you have an experience of an advisor? What do you mean by an advisor? What kind of advising have you done before? So there are a lot of detailing that needs to be done. And I think I would focus on that first, that this is a specialist country. Most of us who are coming from the other part of the world are coming from generalist countries. So we look at things in a very general way. But here, everything is looked in a very specialist way. So even looking for a job or even understanding which profession you want to be, you have to think like a specialist. You have to know why you want to be that. What is the background that you carry which can say that you can do that job, and then decide which one to do. But a good starting point could be, in fact, I'm going to share it in my in the chat, a link, which is CSI Institute website. CSI Institute website has a very nice interactive chart, which gives you all the pathways in Canada in terms of banking. And then if you click each one of those, any one of those, it also shows you what kind of courses are there to support that. So I would just take a second and paste it, and maybe Gavin, you can then share it with the larger group at a later stage.
Wonderful, great information. What steps can newcomers with the specialized banking experience, for example, managerial experience, take so that they can return to a similar level in a Canadian bank?
Yeah, this is a challenge that anybody who has been in a managerial level in other parts of the world face. Good news is that previously nobody would be considered for a managerial role coming new. But nowadays it is changing. The reason it is changing is because more and more newcomers are coming in and they're becoming a part of the society. So to cater to them, you need other people coming in. So there is a room now. 10 years back, it was unheard of. But right now, I can tell you, because I speak to newcomers almost every day, I know so many people, even I've recruited myself, where people who have been joined as a managerial level right at the beginning. But what is important to understand, managerial function in other parts of the world, especially developing parts of the world, and managerial function in a developed nation is very different. There are a lot of clauses in terms of privacy, in terms of human rights, in terms of rights of people, in terms of what you can do, what you cannot do. It is not as simple and straightforward as it used to be back home. A lot of us are used to the hierarchical way of the society, where boss was like your dad, where boss is always right, where boss tells you what to do. This part of the world, there's nobody got a boss. You work together, it's collaborative, it's very different. In back home, a lot of countries, you can't even imagine a team member speaking out. Here, it's a very common thing to have. Social rights gives you the right to be upfront. So it is not as simple as we think it is. So again, what is important is the preparation. Preparation of understanding the society, preparation of understanding how things work here. Here, even a kid, a 6-year-old kid is encouraged to speak out. People are encouraged to put their view in front of them, in front of anybody. You shouldn't be worried about your skin, about your age, about your type to ask a question. So managing people here is not as simple, or as it was. I would not put simple or complicated, but it is not the same. So first and foremost, you need to understand. You need to understand how the society functions. You can do all that by doing volunteering and quite a few other things. So is it very advisable to go straight into managerial until unless you are in a very high level, you have really proven that you have done multiple levels of managerial functions, and then come in, there's a possibility that you would get that break. But if you're not that, and if you're a new manager, 7, 8 years, 9 years, I would strongly prefer that you start from being a manager, but without people management to start with. Understand how people work here. This is a place where more than 120 countries people are working with you. It is a very different pond. So understand that and then move in. So you have to be culturally sensitive. I'm sure quite a few were not very sure why Gavin spoke about the thanking of the land. Understand that question, why we thank land. Because I know a lot of newcomers would have no idea why people speak about it. I have been to newcomer places where they don't understand what's that all about. So that's a part of the Canadian culture. So understand the culture and then be empathetic about the culture. Develop yourself to say why you think you will be able to do it. Because remember, unlike other parts of the world or developing parts of the world, you don't need to be a people manager to grow here. Because growth doesn't mean only managing people in this part of the world. Growing means your salary increases, your responsibility increases. It is not necessary that you have to have people reporting to be there. In fact, more people reporting could be just an operational job where they have more people reporting than a leadership position. So don't mix up leadership with managerial function. These are two different things. So understand that. And also remember, I know I meet a lot of people who come and tell me, oh, I had 50 reportees. So if that person is from India, I give them a very simple example. What is India's population? 1.3 billion. What is the population of Canada? 37 million. So whatever you had reporting 50 people divided by that fraction, it will land to 1. So if you get 1 report, you should be happy. So it's all about the relativity. So don't go by those numbers and then say, oh, I had 100 people reporting, so I want to become somebody like that. So you'll never have 100 people reporting. The reason is the country is different now, right? So focus on what do you mean by a manager? What do you really mean by managing? Managing what? Because this is a specialist country. This is a developed nation. Population is much lesser. So just managing people is not what people do here. Long answer to your short question, Vance.
No, it was actually great insight. Great. Talking about finances can be different depending on your cultural background. How can newcomers who are interested in banking, in a banking career, develop their soft skills so that they can work effectively in the Canadian banking sector?
As I said, you have to be very open-minded. You have to understand the society. Bank is not outside the society. Bank is where people, your neighbor comes to take their money in and out. Right? So it's at the end of it, it's the people. So you have to understand the culture of this country. And to understand the socio-cultural setup of this country, you have to be successful inside a bank, you have to be successful in a grocery store. You have to understand how people behave in a grocery store. You need to understand why people hold the door behind you when you pass. You need to respect the reason why, even if there is nobody on the road, on a simple stop sign, people do stop. Those are the cultural elements that you have to learn and you have to adapt to, because that's what makes the behavior part easier. Canadians are not aggressive, but Canadians are passively aggressive. People are more bothered about your results than your noise. So my recommendation to a newcomer would be, try to get into things which brings you closer to the society. This is a society where people give back. This is a society where kids are taught that if you earn $30, $10 goes for charity. So be part of charities, be part of social setups, do some volunteering, and not in your own socio-economic area. Do it in a Canadian space. Understand how the society works here. Because those are elements which we were, at least I was not involved or aware of when I was back home. So understand those pieces first, which then automatically on top of that comes in the knowledge of banking, which some of it you already have if you have been in banking before. And on top of that, you add some of the Canadian part of banking, some academic requirement, depending on which program you go. Then you have a proper sandwich in place. Otherwise, you have a sandwich without any fillers in between. So the filler is your cultural understanding. Whether you want a veg sandwich or a beef sandwich or whatever sandwich you want, it is the filler that makes that sandwich a sandwich. Today, you just have those two breads. And those two breads is what you brought in with yourself and your knowledge of whatever you have done before. But that filler has to happen here. And then it doesn't matter whether it's banking or somewhere else. At the end of it, you talk to people and you service people. That's what you do. So understanding the cultural element of it, critical thinking, understanding how things are solved there, very important.
Great advice. What are some changes you have noticed about careers in the banking since the pandemic?
Not much. Actually, the banks are very busy. The banks are actually making tons of money. Banks are very busy. So nothing much. There has been a little bit of shift between branches to digital, but the industry hasn't reached that spot to say, oh, branches are gone. Everything is going to be digital now. So we are far off from that. So it's going to be a multiple choice kind of a thing where people would probably do their day-to-day transactions on mobile. But whenever is an advice requirement or something else, they would go to a branch. Looking for a bigger ticket mortgage or something, they would prefer to go to a branch. So nothing much has changed. It depends on, and those changes are part and parcel of any industry. Every 10 years, every industry goes through some changes. Banking will also go through some changes. But between 2008 and now, when in 2008 we thought all banks will close, nothing of that is thought is going to happen. And even with this one, nothing is going to change. Maybe 2 years back, you would be going 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Now you'll probably go twice a week. Rest of the days you'll work like what I'm doing right now, sitting at my home and working. So that's about the difference. Otherwise, foundationally, I have not seen any big difference happening, which is noteworthy of mention.
Great. What are 3 currently more relevant occupations for the banking sector? And how can newcomers find their way to these careers?
So advice is going to always become very critical because of the fact that Canada is an aging population. So the 2 biggest segments of Canada is one who are baby boomers who are 55 and above, who are going to retire in next 10 years. So that's a big population. And then the newcomer population. So you guys who are going to make more and more money down the line. So for those 2 group of people, advice is going to be very critical. So anything which is advice-based, customer-facing is going to be important. Canada is also one of those markets where it's attracting so many newcomers across the globe. So mortgages, property is a very important piece. Because Canada is still, though the market has really heated up, prices have gone up, but even today, Canada is nowhere close to any of the top 10 global markets. We are nowhere close to New York, nowhere close to Tokyo, nowhere close to quite a few, nowhere close to Sydney. We are not even, top 10 or top 6 or 7 in that matrix. So we still would have a very strong, and as newcomers comes in, we would have that demand. So mortgages are going to be a very critical piece on the retail banking side. On the commercial banking side, more and more fintechs, small enterprises, innovation is going to be an area. where Canada would try to get more innovation-centric organizations coming. So that would be one area. So that's what comes to my mind, other than trading and all that, which are traditional and is going to always stay. And to be successful in this, as I said, that whatever you do in this country, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared for it. You need to know why you are getting into it. What are the strengths that you bring in? What are the weaknesses, so that you work on the weaknesses? Is that any job, remember this, any job would have three requirements. One is technical, that how much technical knowledge does it require? Second, cultural. How much of cultural understanding do you require to do that job? And third, how much of knowledge of the market makes a difference? Now, in each of these, any job that you look into, if the technical knowledge is available, or I would say the third one could be academic, that what do you need a certification or academic background to show that you can do this job? So this three is there for any job. So for being successful in any one of these jobs, you have to understand how much technical knowledge is required to do that job. Do I have it? What are the academic requirements for that job? Do I have it? The third one, which you would not have, is the cultural understanding or the understanding of the local market. And that's what you need to develop. If you don't have the first, if you have the first two. If you don't have the first two, then all three you have to work on. And some of them will happen through volunteering. Some of them will happen through working. Even a small part-time job would help you to understand that. And some of it would happen through your academic qualifications. And being successful in any job, and I can tell you after 25 years of working, is doing it passionately and doing it wholeheartedly, honestly, simple. There's no other way of becoming successful in a particular job. You have to do it best.
Yes, showing up prepared and showing up really passionate. It means something to you, that every morning, you know, you are.
It cannot be just a job. Yeah, it cannot just be a job.
Yes.
Then you will never be successful in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Any final advice you would give to newcomers who want to work in the banking sector?
No, just, you know, this is a fantastic country. You have chosen a beautiful country to, you know, raise you, yourself, your family. Banking is a very, very strong segment in this country. Very solid banking background, very, very organized sector. It employs a big chunk of total employment. About 250,000 people or 350,000 people are employed here. Remember, there are 89 banks in this country. People think there are only 5. So don't limit yourself. There are 89 banks and financial services organizations. So the platform is big. You have to understand why you. That's the answer that you have to prepare yourself for, and then go for it. And then if you guys really are interested to get a little bit more insight from whatever I just said, I do have a YouTube channel called The Compass Guide. You guys can have a look. There are quite a few number of videos, and I do regularly in a month, every month I do videos with leaders, myself, talking about issues of newcomers, where how come newcomers be successful, on networking, on resumes, on quite a few other things. If you like to see them, please go and watch it and take advantage of it.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and expertise with us today, Sandeep.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And Sandeep, if you can find that YouTube link, I'm sure all our audience members would want to see it. You can type it in the chat and also send it out in the email afterwards so that everyone can.
Yeah, I'll send you the link on the chat.
Perfect, perfect. So that's all for our questions for Sandeep. But if anyone else has any questions, do type them into the Q&A. But before we get to your questions, Venus is going to be talking about the Career Loans Program and how we work with newcomers in Alberta and Saskatchewan so that you can get back into your desired careers. So for now, Sandeep, you and I will turn off the cameras and let Venus give her presentation. Afterwards, we'll all come back on for the final Q&A.
Right, Career Loans. It's a program funded by Government of Canada, actually coordinated by Achēv, and our financial institution is HSBC Bank. So what is Career Loans? It's a fully virtual service for internationally trained individuals in Alberta and Saskatchewan. We provide free career support services and assistance with a microloan application, as well as guidance in terms of how you can return to your career in Canada, or if you wanted to consider an alternative career. We are here to support that as well. Program features, it's actually free career and financial counseling, low interest microloan up to $15,000, referrals to employment services, a guide to accreditation process, and advice for alternative careers. Who is eligible? Internationally trained individuals in regulated or non-regulated occupations and trades, residents of Alberta and Saskatchewan, who are permanent resident, Canadian citizens, or convention refugees with a minimum Canadian language benchmark level of 5. A few benefits if you become member to our program, it's actually supporting services from our expert counselors, personalized one-on-one sessions, discussing your career path and options, and then creating a personalized action plan for you. And all of this is done virtually via phone or video conferencing, such as Zoom platform, as well as accessing live webinars catered towards newcomers and expert guest speakers on relevant topics, and accessing previous webinar videos, which is recorded and available to the members, and also accessing an event calendar for your province. So how does it work? Basically, once you locate your dream job and you realize, like you understand what kind of requirements needed, you register for our service at careerloans.ca. We get in touch with you, and in that one-on-one session, we get to know you and basically hear from you what are your goals and how best we can support you. At that point, if you wanted to basically fund your training or certification by accessing our loan, we can help you with that, to create a file for you and support you throughout the process of approval till the end that you can have the funds to pay for the training. So how we help in a form of a one-on-one session, which is actually a virtual counseling session by referral to our partners service organizations, as well as accessing, facilitating access to the microloan program. Now I want to talk about the features of the loan. It's provided by our partners at HSBC Bank. It is up to $15,000 with the low interest rate of HSBC Prime +2. Right now it is sitting at 4.45%. Loan repayment is up to 4 years. And throughout this time, you get continued support from Career Loans counselors through the repayment period. We actually check in with you to see if any further support is needed. Eligible expenses can be credential assessment, accreditation, training, books and equipments, and also career-related fees such as exams, licensure, membership, associations, and union fees. And if you actually have a question regarding whether an expense is eligible, you can actually get in touch. We can discuss it with you. The program is totally free and virtual. All services actually free of charge, and it is virtual. You can sign up anytime. Please visit our website at www.careerloans.ca to make yourself familiar with it. And here is the contact information. Should you have any question, I'll be glad to talk to you. So this is the end of the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing now. Back to you, Gavin.
Thank you, Venus.
No.
So if anyone has questions about the Career Loans program, do get in touch with us and we'll be happy to to see how we can help. Now let's move on to the Q&A session. So Sandeep, if you could please turn on your camera again and join us. We do have a few questions. And if you have any questions, please do add them to the Q&A. We do have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. So unfortunately, we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. If we don't get to your question, do get in touch with us and we would love to follow up with you or connect with Sandeep on LinkedIn. I'm seeing some questions about and some personal questions. So yeah, for those questions, do definitely get in touch with us at Career Loans and we can tell you how your specific credentials can be translated in Canada or again, connect with Sandeep on LinkedIn. One of the questions someone is asking, what do banks in Canada look out for in someone who wants to be a relationship manager? Sandeep?
So in retail banking, if you are trying to become a relationship manager, people look at your experience in terms of managing portfolios before, first of all. Secondly, they also look at academic qualifications, specifically to Canadian standards. CSI, CSC is one of them, or mutual fund course, at least to start with. These are the two very basic requirements. CSC is always better. And then if you have anything better than that, CFP or PFP in that route, then that would be great to have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Sandeep. The next question. What is the future job market of CFA charter holders in Canada? Are you able to answer this question?
CFA, CFA is a very robust designation. I know that quite a few things have changed recently in Canada, where if you are already a CFA, then you don't need to give a couple of programs locally. You don't have to do, say, for example, you don't need to do a CSC in all probability that I heard from. CFA gives you a umbrella, kind of coverage. So, and those kind of designations will always have demand. However, it depends on which kind of field you are looking to use your CFA to is what is going to be more important to know.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. The next question, Sandeep, how easy or difficult is it to transition from a telephonic banking service to a physical or virtual bank? Are you able to provide some insight on that?
It depends. It depends. It all depends on in the telephonic environment, what you have done, how you have done, and then based on that, if you're looking for a break into a face-to-face or a mobile banking kind of a scenario, it is all about then networking, understanding which jobs you're targeting, which organization you are in, and then take your plan it. Mm-hmm. Nothing would happen automatically. Nothing would happen just because you are thinking it needs to happen. As I said, the person who's going to take you need to decide and understand why you. So that answer you need to have. Mm-hmm. You have to be the solution and not the problem.
Absolutely. And Sandeep, I know you're a frequent volunteer with Access Employment or mentor. This question, does the Banking Bridge program provided by Access Employment help you with getting a job in the banking sector?
It does. I have at least met so many who got help because of that. It brings you close to the banking sector. It also brings you close. It gives you a lot of networking opportunities. So yeah, it definitely helps.
Fantastic. Let's see. So can you share the links of organizers? We'll share the links. Yes, we will. Okay. Is it true that I must get a Canadian University MBA in finance before I can get a job in a bank in Canada?
No, you don't need a Canadian MBA to get that. But if you are trying to get a job in Canadian banking, if you want to be an advisor, a relationship manager, you need to have the qualifications that is required for that, the certifications that are required to do that job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is sort of a follow-up, but also from a different audience member. What are the further studies I have to do for banking jobs? The further
it depends
studies.
on, as I said, banking is a very vast field. So I've shared the link. Look at that link. As I said, as a newcomer, the biggest difference that you see in this country, you have to do things yourself. So do it yourself. So you have to do your research. I have provided you with a link which gives you the most detailed view of Canadian banking, roles, what is the path towards those roles, what are the designations that it takes you to, and what are the qualifications that you need to be there. So you have to do the work to understand that, and then it will be clearer to you to say that, okay, which certification is required for which kind of a job.
Absolutely, absolutely.
See, this is the country where we clean our own rooms, right?
That's
No
right.
one else does it. So it's the same thing. You search your own job, you do your own stuff.
That's absolutely right. The next question is a CSC same as a CIFC? Are you able to shed some insight?
I'm not sure about what is CIFC. I don't know.
Okay.
CSI is Canadian Security Institute.
Security,
And
yeah.
CSC is a Canadian Security Certification Course. I'm not too sure what is CIFC.
Okay, no problem. What are the prospects for newcomers who want to enter banking or the finance sector without prior experience? What education upgrade could help them switch careers?
I've seen so many, so it depends. Again, as I said, which type of banking career you're looking for is what the question should be. Ideally, you should start with something. If you're not been in banking before, you should start at the lower levels, which is more B2C kind of an environment. To understand B2C, you need to have some certifications. As I said, mutual fund courses, CSC is some of those which can help you to get there. And then you have to also put a point across at why you, right? And then start it fresh and then continue with that. I've seen tons and tons of newcomer do that. Because the reason is that banking is one of the biggest sectors here, especially in some of the areas, some parts of Canada, it is one of the biggest employer. So that's the reason why a lot of people choose to get into banking, because the employer, it's a big base. The funnel, face of the funnel is big. So it's nothing new. I've seen so many people do that. But again, you have to be prepared. You have to know why and what.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Another question. I have several applications to various job roles with the bank. Does this put me at a disadvantage?
Yeah, you shouldn't never apply multiple jobs in one same organization. Because it all goes through the same system. They would be able to see that you're applying multiple jobs, which means that you're not very sure about yourself. More than that, you are desperate. It shows that you are not too sure about what you want. As I said, it's a specialist country. You cannot really say, I do this also, I can do that also, and I have done that also. That doesn't go too well in this country, because that's not how it works. So you should not apply multiple jobs in the same organization. That's the reason you have to prepare yourself. I always give this example. It's like the bow and arrow, right? You cannot focus on the arrow without focusing on the fact how you pull back that arrow. So pulling back that arrow, in which stance you're going to stand and how you're going to pull it back, is all going to decide how accurately you're going to throw the arrow. A lot of times newcomers make this mistake. They start focusing on the arrow. They're only focused on, okay, how fast the arrow will go and where will it hit. It cannot do that until unless you're prepared to really know how to pull it back. So please prepare before you shoot that arrow. You don't see that, but I can tell you, everybody sees it, that that arrow is not going to go anywhere if you're not prepared for pulling it back, right? That's the most important stance in the whole arrow throwing activity. So focus on that part. If you do that, the arrow would go and hit the right place.
So go back to the previous question. CSC same as CIFC. CIFC, they follow up saying Canadian Investment Funds course.
Yeah, so that's a mutual fund program. That's a mutual fund course. So CSC is higher one than the mutual fund course.
Okay.
If you just do mutual fund, you're licensed to sell only mutual funds. But if you're in CSC, then you are also eligible for a couple of other things.
Okay. Let's see. As a mortgage license agent, what are the chances of getting a job into banking?
Mortgage agent, there are different roles in banks as mortgage advisors. So quite a few banks does have mobile mortgage specialists as their channel. So if you have done a mortgage course, then that door just open up. Quite a few banks have mobile mortgage specialists. They are mostly into variable pay, but it can be very, very rewarding. And as I said, this whole country, properties plays a very big role in its GDP. So mortgages are a very clear, big portion of banking sector here. And it by itself is a sector. There are organizations who just does mortgages, nothing else. And they're bigger than quite a few number of banks. Mm-hmm. So, yep, it gives you a bigger opportunity if you focus on that.
All right. I assume this question would be varying based province to province, but what is the starting pay range in banking sector like for customer representative, financial representative services?
I would prefer not to answer that because as you said, different places have different pieces. The easiest way to check that is go to Glassdoor and check it out.
Mm-hmm. Glassdoor is a great resource, yes.
Go to Glassdoor, put your city, put the designation you're looking at, you'll find the average median there.
This listener is looking for some advice. I've applied to more than 200 financial advisor jobs for different banks in the past month, all unsuccessful. My background is in engineering and I have an MBA as well from back home. I am CSC candidate, but without banking experience. Any advice for this listener?
Yeah, first of all, you should immediately stop applying because you would be a classic case where you know your target, you're passionate about it, you want your arrow to go and hit it, but I don't think you have put in enough to understand whether you are doing the pulling back part together or not. Why would somebody take you? You are right now the problem statement. You have to become the solution. And for that, you have to prepare yourself, first of all, mentally, secondly, with your academic qualification, thirdly, by building your resume and your storyline accordingly, and then target whom you are trying to target, what are you trying to target. Advisor is definitely not where you can start. Nobody's going to recruit you as an advisor straight away. Yourself saying you don't have an experience in banking, you don't have experience in managing funds, you have no experience in managing high net worth individuals. So why will somebody risk to take you on something which is so high voltage? Instead of that, I always give this other analogy that if you're trying to get into a new place, how do you enter an igloo? Can you enter an igloo standing straight? You cannot. You have to bow down to get inside the igloo and then come out and then stand straight and do whatever you want to. That's the route for you too. So you need to understand where you stand. You need to understand your strengths and weaknesses. Build a path, a short-term, mid-term path, and then move ahead. And then once you have all these very clear, then understand which jobs you should apply, whom you should network with, because right now you're only doing a damage to yourself. You are actually standing on a soft sand and trying to jump on it. That's what you're trying to do when you are applying 200 jobs in a month's time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Don't.
Okay. We have time for one more question. Can I get a bank job in Canada with a BSc accounting from Nigeria? With a BSc accounting from Nigeria. Any inputs on this, Sandeep?
You need to do something. You need to do some certification here to be able to get into a banking here. So your BSc accounting is a general designation, but you need to have some kind of a certification depending on what attracts you in banking. And where there is I would recommend that go for something where the funnel is big, which means the jobs are more, and it helps you to at least get in the igloo way, but at least do some certification to be able to do the igloo way. And then once you're inside, then you understand it a little better, then understand where you really want to go. So it's important to have a short-term plan, a mid-term plan, and a long-term plan.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The long-term plan can happen after your mid-term plan is done.
And Venus, I don't know if you have anything you want to add with this, especially we're talking about internationally trained newcomers with foreign credentials. Career Loans is definitely here to help, right?
Definitely. I mean, if you're considering those certifications, please get in touch. if you require funding, we can actually work with you in sending an application in for the loan.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we are running short on time. I know. I appreciate everyone who left a question. If we haven't been able to get to you, please get in touch with us, whether that be connecting through Sandeep in LinkedIn or with the Career Loans team. I do have our emails. Let me just share the screen really quickly. Both of you, please stay on camera as we wrap up today's webinar. Let's see. So one more thing, thank you for joining us today. We do have another webinar next month, Understanding New Labor Realities, Thursday, October 14th at 12 p.m. Saskatchewan and Alberta time. So this is about the ever-changing labor realities. It's a great presentation. We hope to see many of you there. I will send out this link in the email as well as any other relevant links. So do keep an eye out for an email to take our survey. Your feedback will be very much appreciated. Last but not least, here's the contact information for the Career Loans team. If you're in Saskatchewan, info.sk@Career Loans, info.ab@Career Loans if you are in Alberta. Our website is down here, www.careerloans.ca. And if you have a question for Sandeep, please do search Sandeep up in LinkedIn and he would be more than happy to connect with you. That's going to do it for today's webinar. Please share the link where the certification courses. Someone's asking, please share the link what the certification courses we have to do. Was that the link you sent earlier, Sandeep?
Yep.
Yeah, so I will include that link in the email as well. Thank you very much, Sandeep. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, do get in touch if you do have more questions. We do want to keep, we don't want to take too much of everyone's time. So we are cutting the webinar off here now, but we are always willing and happy to hear from you. Thank you again, Sandeep, and thank you for everyone.
Thank you.